right, let's check out how we can use our VST and AU plugins right here within DaVinci Resolve. That's right, your audio plugins are no longer constrained to just being used within your DAW. We can use them right here within DaVinci Resolve as well. But before we can use them, we need to set up in preferences where DaVinci Resolve should look for those plugins. So let's go ahead and do that first. All right, so before we can use our VST plugins here in DaVinci Resolve, we need to set up the locations so DaVinci Resolve can, of course, find them. So come up here to DaVinci Resolve, go to Preferences, and then you'll come down here to Audio Plugins. And right here is where you can add your VST folders. Now, DaVinci Resolve can use VST2 plugins and also use VST3 plugins. So what I would suggest is that you just add the VST3 path. Most modern plugins are already VST3. VST3 is a much better format than VST2. But if after you add your VST3 and you check out your plugins and not everything is there that you want, simply come back here, click Add, and then find your VST2 paths and go ahead and add those. But again, I would suggest that you simply start with your VST3 folder. And VST3 plugins are hard-coded to this location here. Now, VST2 plugins are a bit different. They can really be anywhere on your system. So I'll put a description on screen of some common places where you can find your VST2 plugins. All right, so once you add your path, you'll need to come down here and click Save. Then you'll need to restart DaVinci Resolve. Once it opens back up, it's going to scan through all of those plugins. Walk away, let it do its thing. Now, subsequent, restarts, of course, will be much, much faster. All right. Now, once you have all of that done, you can find your plugins here on the edit page under Effects. And then, of course, come down to your VST effects. You even have Fairlight effects, which are built in. So even if you don't have any VST effects, you can still use your Fairlight effects for your audio. But we'll come down here to VST effects. And here is all of the VST3 effects in this case. But you can also access them over here in the cut page. Of course, just open your effects tab. Make sure you come over here to audio, and here they are. Just grab them, drop them right on a track. And you can also access them over here in Fairlight in the same manner. Just click that effects tab right there. Come down to your, of course, your VST effects, and there they are. You can also access them right from the channels over here in Fairlight. Just click the plus button right there. And then you'll select from your plugins from a list, sort of like we do in Pro Tools, okay? Or, of course, just drag them in as we do in something like Studio One. Okay, so now that we know how to add our plugins to DaVinci Resolve and, of course, how to find them, let's check out a couple ways that we can use them. So we essentially have two different workflows that we can choose from when it comes to our audio plugins. We can do a track-based or channel-based effects or clip-based effects. Now, the difference between that is if I put an effect on a track, so say the audio one track, that effect is going to affect every single piece of audio right here on this audio one track. Now, if instead I put an effect directly on a clip, of course, it's only going to affect that exact clip and not everything else that might happen to be on the same track. So we'll go with track-based first, just to check this out. So listen to this. Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs here in Studio. All right, so this voice track needs to be fixed. I happen to know the plugin that I want, so I'll come down to my VST plugins. I'm just going to search for it because I know what it is. It's called Nectar. We're going to grab it, and let's just throw it directly on our audio one track. I'll just drop it right there, bada bing, bada boom, and there it is. Now, I happen to have a preset for this, for the SM7B mic. Boom, pull that right up, and we should be, pretty well set up. Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs here in Studio One. It's super simple. Okay, now the way you set this up, edit it just a little bit. Make sure this voice track comes right through. Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs here in Studio One. It's super, very good. Now, I could bypass this plugin. Of course, this plugin happens to have a bypass built in, but we can also bypass it right there as well. Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs. Okay, turn it back on. Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs here in Studio One. It's very good. Let's come over here now to Fairlight because we can see a few more options over here. So right here, we can see the plugin effect that is on that track. If I need to bring up that interface again, I can click this button right there that says controls, and that will bring my interface back up. I can also, even if the interface is closed, I can bypass that plugin with this red dot right there. Let's open the interface. We can see right there that it is bypassed either way. Okay, so that's a very handy thing to have. And if I want to trash that effect, I can use this down arrow and I can delete the plugin. I can disable the plugin. I can replace the plugin with something else directly right here. You can also open a plugin interface over here in the edit page. You don't necessarily have to come back here to Fairlight and click that button, but we are looking for the same kind of button over here in the edit page. So you want your inspector open, of course, and then click on the track over here. And then up here, you can see inspector timeline audio 1. There's audio. Let's come over to effects. And there are the two effects that are on that track, not the effects on, on a clip, but the effects that are on that track. And then we can open the interface with the same kind of button right there. Okay. We close that one. We have two effects on that track. Again, not on the clip, but on the track. You can also change the stacking order for your effects over here in the edit page. So right now we have the API first and the Abbey Road vinyl second. I can just use either our up or down arrows and change the chain or change the stacking order. Now you can see that vinyl comes first and then the API comes second. And that's the same thing as being over here in Fairlight and then just grabbing the plugin and dragging it up, or of course, dragging it down, put the Abbey Road back on top of that. All right, so we can change the structure of our plugins in either place. We can open the interface from either place, Fairlight, or your edit page under the inspector. Make sure you actually select the audio track and not an audio clip. And come over here to effects and look for that tiny little control button, that custom UI button right there. Okay. Now you'll also see this effects in button. If I turn that off, then it's going to bypass all of the effects that I have on this track. So let's add another effect on this track here. We could do it like this, but instead I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to type in something like maybe a chorus or something. And we'll just grab choral and we'll just drop it right there. So now we have two effects on this track. Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs here in Studio One. It's super simple. Okay, that's a nice chorus effect. Of course, it sounds weird on this, but we're just doing this so we can actually hear what's happening. If I take the effects in here and turn that off, it will vary between DAWs here in Studio One. It's essentially bypassing both of those effects in one go. So that way I don't have to bypass each one individually. All right. So just keep that in mind. You also have, turn those back on. You also have the order of the audio processing here for each channel. Now, right now it's on effects, DY, which is your dynamics section, and your EQ section. Okay, so you do have a dynamics section and an EQ section built into each channel. These are not like regular plugins. They're built in, to the channel, like a desk or something, right? Double click that. Of course, you can use the built-in dynamics. Obviously, you can add any compressor or limiter that you want instead of using the built-in effects. And same thing for your EQ. Load up any EQ you want. You don't have to use the one that's built in. But what the order does is it's the order of processing the audio. So it's processing the effects first, then it's running into the dynamics, then it's running into the EQ. If for some reason you want to EQ first, let's say, you can always switch that right here. So EQ first maybe, and then it runs into the effects, and then it runs into the dynamics. Now, audio flow, audio signal processing is a little too out of the scope of this. It could take, quite a while, but just visualize your audio running through a plugin like a reverb. Do you want it to hit the reverb first and then EQ it? Or do you want to EQ it first and then have that signal hit the reverb? So we'll just switch this back right there. And of course, everything we do here in Fairlight is gonna, copy over to the edit page as well. Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs here. Now, again, since we are using a track-based effect, it's going to affect everything on audio track 1. We can also tell there's effects on this track by the effects tag right there. Now, in this case, being that we have audio on a track, we have music on the same track, etc., I probably wouldn't want to use a track, based, effect workflow, at least not for these specific effects, because that sounds awful, right? Now, the way you set this up will vary between well, perhaps that's something I would want. But again, you wouldn't want to process your vocals. My track is stereo just by clicking on the same track that you have music. Right, we're just blowing that out. So just keep in mind, the workflow of your plugins. If you're going to do a track-based workflow, make sure everything on that track is similar. Okay, so I might want to move my music down to a different track, and then it's not going to be affected by the plugins on the Audio 1 track. Track is stereo just by, okay. We could also render or bounce out a mix of our audio with all of our plugins that are on our track included in that audio, just in case your computer is slowing down or something. So right now we have 3 different effects on this Audio 1 track. I'll just put an in and an out, just of course I&O, just around this section. Let's hear it real quick. So it sounds awful, but we have that reverb really pumped up just so we can hear it. So if my computer was slowing down and I have my effects on a track, again, I don't have them on a clip in this case, but on a track, I could come to timeline and I could bounce the mix to the track. You also do have options for bounce selected tracks to a new layer, but let's just do bounce mix to track. And we'll just put this on a new track, or we could do Audio 1 or Audio 2. We'll just say a new track, click OK. And it's going to bounce out just this selected area, running through all of the effects that we have on that track. Going to create a new track for us, which is right down here now. So because we have our effects on audio track 1, of course, they're not going to affect audio track 4, but just in case you don't believe me, we can just delete all of these plugins from our audio track 1. I'll even mute that. We'll just solo just this bounced out track. And now you'll hear that all of those plugins have been integrated, bounced out, or baked in to our audio. Okay, and we don't have any effects at all in our session right now. So again, if your computer's slowing down because you have a ton of plugins built up on your tracks, feel free to use your timeline and bounce out a mix, pull it back in, and get rid of those plugins that might be slowing you down. Of course, I could have also just bounced this out to track 1 again, then it would have went right over top. But just grab real quick here, let me just show you. We'll just grab a standard reverb, put it on the first track here. We'll get rid of what we bounced out there. Now we'll just hear this. Okay, so it has reverb on it, right? I could, again, I have my in and out marks there, timeline, bounce mix to new track, and I'll put it on audio track 1, which is where this track already resides. Click OK. It's going to bounce that out. It's going to run it through the reverb. There we go. Now we have a completely affected signal. Then I could get rid of that reverb, and we still have the effect baked in. Okay, so that's one way that you could work with your plugins on that track-based workflow, kind of like you do in a DAW. But now we'll check out a different kind of a workflow, a more of a clip-based workflow. And this can get pretty cool. There's a lot of options in here in DaVinci Resolve. But first, let's delete the plugins, these effects from our audio track. And now we're back to the raw audio clip. All of the effects have been removed. As you can tell, there's no more effect tag right there. The way you set this up will vary between DAWs. So now we'll do more of a clip-based workflow. We'll do the same thing here. Effects, we'll go to VST effects. Maybe we'll use the same plugin. We'll go with Nectar again. And this time I'll drop it directly on the clip instead of on the track. Okay, so right on the clip. Now this is only going to affect this specific clip and no other clips, even if they're on the same track. Okay, so we'll head in here. I'll just grab this preset, a gain, bada bing, bada boom. By the way, we can do the same thing over here in Fairlight as well. Just grab your effect, put it directly on a clip. Okay, same thing over there, but we'll stay here in the edit page for now. Now, where did my interface go? How do I get that back? No problem. Just select that audio clip, come up here to your inspector and go to effects. And now we can see that Nectar Pro is on that clip. If I want to see the interface, I'll click this button right here and that will pop that interface right back up. We can also, change the parameters from this sort of basic interface, and you'll have a different one here for every single plugin. Okay, but I would rather manipulate the actual interface. We can also bypass right over here. We can bypass right up here. We can trash the plugin right there. That's going to take it completely off of your track, and that effects tag will disappear here in just a second as well. There we go. Now it's gone. Okay, so that's how you can bypass and remove your effects from your clips. Let's put it right back on that clip one more time. Head back to my SM7B preset. There we go. Very good. So we'll play back. Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs. Here in Studio One, it's super simple. Maybe modify it. Now, the way you set this a little bit, I'll really raise that top end just so we can hear it. Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs here, right? So this plugin is definitely affecting this clip, but what about this clip? Will it affect that as well? Let's close our inspector so we can see this a little better. The track is stereo just by clicking this button and then come, and no, it does not. Okay. It's also not going to affect anything else that we have in our session. So I can play that. And the EQ, the compressor is not affecting the drum track here, even though it's on the same audio track as this clip here. All right. So that is your clip-based workflow. And just like we did with the track-based workflow, where we had several effects on a track, we can do the same thing with several effects on a clip. So let me grab another effect. Maybe I want a really good noise reduction, background noise reduction plugin. So I'll grab Clarity right here, and we'll drop it right on the same clip. Very good. All right, turn it up. Now, the way you set this up will vary between... Now, I do have a bit of an issue in that just the signal flow of this. I happen to be, we happen to be affecting it with Nectar first and then running it through to our noise reduction. Now, I would prefer to have my noise reduction first and then run it through my compressor and my EQ. So how can I change the stacking order of my plugins the same way we did over here in Fairlight, right? So no problem there. Come back here to edit, come back to my effects there, and you'll see this button right here, okay? So you can take your effects either higher or lower in the stack. So just click the up, and that's going to put Clarity now before Nectar Pro. Pretty cool, right? I need to open up Nectar Pro again because we really exaggerated that top end there. Okay, so now we should have a pretty good vocal that's nice and clean. Of course, we can expose that there. So this is the way the signal flow is working, by the way. It's the audio running into the noise reduction and then the noise reduced signal into our gate, our de-esser, EQ, and compressor. Okay, so that's the signal flow now. Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs. Here in Studio One, it's super simple. There we go. And of course, we can always bypass these plugins individually, etc., etc. But that's not all you can do with your clip-based workflow for your audio effect plugins. Let me get rid of Clarity there, and we'll just stick with Nectar. Okay, let me bring this back up, and I'm going to exaggerate this top end of the EQ just so it's very, very apparent. Maybe I'll even squeeze down the low end there. Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs here in Studio. All right, so that is very apparent. Now, imagine if you had a lot of plugins on a single clip, or you have a plugin that's really taking a lot of your resources and you're getting a bunch of stuttering whenever you're
Step will vary between DAWs.
whenever you're playing back. Okay, so just imagine that scenario. Well, we can actually render our effect to disk, and we can do that right up here with these 3 dots. So click that, and you can see bounce audio effect. Let's click that and see what happens. And there it goes. It's going to render that effect, which means it's going to run the audio through the effect. It's going to write a file to disk, and then it's going to drop it over top of that original audio track. And you can actually see the difference in that original, from that original track, which is the same track here, by the way. You can see how much louder this one is here. So now if I select this clip and come to my inspector and go to effects, I can't, because there are no effects on this clip now because we rendered it to disk. That's pretty cool.
The way you set this up will vary between DAWs,
as we can confirm right there with the way the audio sounds. Now, what if I wanted to go back to the way it was previously and readjust that effect? Well, no problem. There's a couple ways we could actually do this. We could come to View and come down here to Show Audio Track Layers. Click that, and now we can see that original track is still here. It's just been disabled. So if I wanted to have this original track, we could always pull it up to the top. I need to enable it first. I just click D on the keyboard, by the way, to enable. So select a clip, press D, will disable, press D again, it will enable. So I can pull that back up. And now we have that original clip right back, and our effect is on there. We can come back to effects over here, open that interface, and manipulate it as such. Let me Control Z a couple times out of that. Very good. So we're back to where we were. Okay. Let's look at another way we could do that. Close that Show Audio Track Layers. I could also just grab this clip here, this rendered clip, and pull it to the side. And right there is, again, that original clip. I'll just click D to enable.
Now, the way you set this up will vary between it.
Right. Come back to my inspector. Of course, come over to effects. I'll show the interface, and let's change that and bring our low end back in there as well.
Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs here in Studio.
Very good. So that's another way that you could actually head in there and see what's underneath that rendered clip. Of course, you can always delete that rendered clip if you wish, and then we can re-render this. We can also, by the way, render our clips over here from the Fairlight page. So if you have that interface closed, we can come over here to Fairlight, we can right click, and then we can bounce the audio effects, and that will bounce all of the audio effects that are on that clip. Okay, same thing over here. It's going to be reflected over here on our edit page. Pull this over, and we can see the underlying clip there. Same thing over here in Fairlight. Let's expand that a bit. If I pull this over, you can see what is underneath it there, and I can always manipulate it if I need to. So now we're back to where we were. Pull this back up, and we'll do the same thing, just again, so that we can hear it.
Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs here.
Okay, a lot of top end in that now. So we also have the option of enabling our audio effect cache, sort of the same way we do when we're playing back, and we enable the render cache for our video. So again, if you're having problems playing back any of your audio effects, we can right click, and then you'll see cache audio effects. You'll also see that over here in Fairlight, right click, and you'll see cache audio effects. I'll come back to the edit page, and I'll do it over here, right click, and we say cache our audio effects. And then you'll see this icon appear right down there. Looks like a disk icon. And that means that the effect has been written to disk or cached to the disk. It's sort of the same thing as our render, except it's a little bit more flexible. So now we play.
Now, the way you set this up will vary between DAWs here in Studio One. It's super simple.
Okay. And if I need to change my effect, I can just come right back here to my inspector, effects, and you can see that disk icon right there. So we know that it's rendered or cached to disk, but I can still open up my plugin interface. and then make changes to the plugin, and it will automatically cache that clip to disk again. Okay, so every change I make, let me just close this here. Close that, it's not rendered or cached, but as you can see, it will automatically recache any of those changes that we made to our audio effect, and it will do it automatically because we have that option selected. And this is a clip-based setting, so if you happen to throw another plugin on a different clip, it's not going to automatically render or cache that effect. You'll have to right-click and make sure you select that option for each clip. It will write that to disk. You can see it happening right there. And there we go. It's fully cached, and it's not going to take up our CPU resources. Is a stereo just by clicking this button and then come down. Same thing for this one here.
Between DAWs here in Studio One.
So you can think of that cache audio effect sort of like freeze is in your DAW. And you can think of, let's come back here to Fairlight. You can think of that bounce audio effects to be sort of like commit is in something like Pro Tools, okay? But we also have another option. We also have export audio files. But before we do that, well, let's just come over and do maybe a different sample here. Let's go to a reverb. I want crystalline. I'll put it right on this clip. This is an amazing reverb. And by the way, if you don't have a lot of VST plugins, I'll have a link down there where you can find some good deals on them. Maybe a few other links down there as well. All right, I'm going to turn down the overall volume right there. Okay, pretty cool reverb, but let's say it's taking up way too much of our resources, but for whatever reason, we don't want to bounce the audio effect. We don't want to render the audio effect. We want to write it to disk in a separate file and then drag it in ourselves manually, even though by bouncing to disk, you're essentially writing that file and it's, you know, overlaying it over the top of the original file. It's doing it for you automatically. If you prefer to do it manually, which some people really do, we can also just export this this clip now, this affected clip. So let's come over here to Fairlight and I'll right click on that clip and we'll choose export audio files. Now we can choose where we want to put this. So we're just going to choose the desktop. We're going to call this maybe reverb vocal or something. Very good. We can also change the file format to whatever you want, broadcast wave. That's fine for us. Sample rate, same as project, all that's good. Now channel format, I do want that to be interleaved, being that this is a stereo file. If I did multiple mono, it would end up giving me 2 individual mono tracks. Then down here under export, we need to pay attention to some of this stuff here. Do we want individual clips? Do we want consolidated files, like a consolidated large file? And also from where? From the entire timeline. Now, if I choose entire timeline, it's going to render all of these audio clips into individual clips, which we don't want. I just want this single clip right there, which I have selected. But you could put a bunch of plugins on your individual clips and then just kind of render everything out at once if you wanted to. But I'm going to choose selected clips. Now I just have one clip selected, so it will be just that single clip. And then you have a few more options, the clip level, the clip fades, etc. And you can normalize it as well if you want. But this is good for us. It's going to our desktop called Reverb Vocal, and we'll just click export. It's going to write that audio to disk. It's going to commit that reverb to a brand new file. Now, nothing happened here in DaVinci Resolve, and that's because the file is right over there because we put it on our desktop. Okay. So then I can grab that new file and just drag it right in. Right there it is. Let's maybe head over to edit just so we can look at it over here. Okay. So we'll take this track and mute the entire track, and I'll play back. I wanna believe We're hearing that reverb effect on this track right here. Let's change the color. Okay. We're hearing the reverb because it has been written to a brand new file, a brand new clip. And then we can get rid of this original clip because we don't need it anymore. Of course, that's going to remove the effect from the track, the effect from our CPU or our RAM.
I wanna believe.
All right, so that is basically everything you need to know about using your VST or AU plugins here within DaVinci Resolve. So feel free to stop and not watch any further. We're going to do this a few more times, but we should understand how a track-based workflow works, how a clip-based workflow works. All right, so let's do this a couple more times. We should understand how this works now, though. So if you don't want to watch this part today, no problem. Go ahead and take off and check this out for yourself. Again, head down to the description and check out some places to get some great deals on audio plugins. So right here we have some people using phones and then people not using phones. So essentially what we're simulating here is we're going to say all these people are listening to the same song, but what I want to happen is I want it to sound like audio coming through a phone when it shows a person, of course, using a phone. And then I want it to sound like, normal audio when someone isn't holding a phone. So no problem here. I have an effect that will do this very well. So first I'm going to split my tracks here. I'm just going to press C on my keyboard. That's my shortcut for the razor. I'm going to add cuts. It's called Futzbox from Mic DSP. Just going to grab it and throw it right on this first clip. Okay, let me move it out of the way a bit and just expand this. I'm going to change the color of this one here to something else. All right, let me just see here what we have. So I want this to simulate a cell phone. Pretty good. Let me do a little noise generation, a little distortion in there. There we go. But I also have this clip here, which she's using a cell phone. So I need to redo that work to make sure this is simulated like it's audio coming from a cell phone. So I could come back to my Futzbox here, put it back on the track and redo all that work. That's absolutely a fine way to work if you want, but a much easier way, much faster way would be to just select that first clip. I'm going to right click and just choose copy, or you can use the control C there to copy. Then I'll come to this clip, right click, or use the shortcut paste attributes, select that. And being that we're dealing with audio, we just need to concern ourselves with the audio attributes. We can do things like the volume. We can match volume. It doesn't matter in this case because the volume's exactly the same. You can bring over the EQ settings. So in this case, it really doesn't matter if those are checked. So I'll just leave them checked. But we definitely want the plugins checked. So that way I get the same plugin with the same settings automatically applied to this clip right there. So then I can hit apply. It's going to copy all that over. You can see the effects tag is now on this clip. I can open my inspector, come over to effects, and we can see that Futzbox is right there on this clip now. Open the interface, and I can confirm that it's the same settings that we have over here on this effect over here. Okay, same exact settings. So that's a quick way to copy that. Even your audio effects, copy those over. But I also have one more clip of a cell phone, so I would need to do it again. Now you can actually select multiple clips and just paste it at the same time, paste the attributes at the same time. But being that we already have it there, I'll just come here, right click, paste those attributes. That's fine. There we go. Now, if I wanted to, we could also cache those audio effects or render them. We already know how to do that. Maybe we'll just cache the audio effect for that first one there. Okay. And then you'll see that we have, every time someone's using a cell phone, it It sounds like the music is coming through a cell phone. When someone's not using a cell phone, it's going to sound normal. All right, pretty cool. So here we have some drums. Maybe I want, let's do some sort of a plate, maybe reverb, and we'll do it directly on the clip here. Turn down that dry wet. It's kind of a cool effect. Right, just giving it a bit of space there, like it's plates. Now, maybe I don't like this effect. Of course, I can always easily just get rid of it. Maybe I'll just type reverb in here. Actually, what I want is, let's go to CLA, and we'll grab CLA drums and put that on the track here, and then dial it in however you want. All right, so let's just say that we like that effect. Of course, we can render it, bounce the audio effect, or we can always head over to Fairlight, do the same thing over here. But what if I also want maybe a limiter or something? And maybe I have an audio track that's full of the same exact kind of drums that need the same exact limiter or something. And perhaps I want to be track-based. Of course, we can do that. We can combine clip-based effects and track-based effects. There's no problem with that at all. So there's actually a limiter built in this dynamics section, but let's say I want a certain limiter. So we'll just search for a limiter, and I'll grab my True Peak from Plugin Alliance, throw it directly on the track. And there we go. Or set your ceiling, your gain, your threshold, etc., etc. Okay, so then by having this limiter on the audio 1 track, remember every single piece of audio on this track will be affected by that limiter. So just understand the difference between a clip-based workflow and a track-based workflow. And you can, of course, combine those and use both at the same time. Let's delete that plugin because we do not need it. Come back here to edit. Let's see what else we have here. So here we have some dry guitar tracks here and here. And then here, for some reason, there's like an intermission of different, music, whatever. So I need to add guitar amp effects to this here. Not a problem. Let's go for, I have a nice diesel. Let's go for maybe the VH4. And we could put this directly on the clips, or we could put it directly on a track. There isn't anything else on this audio 3 track, so I might want to just put this on the, let's come over to Fairlight. I might want to put this on directly on the track, perhaps. Do it like this first. Okay. Then whenever we play that back, very good. Of course, set it up. All right, come back to the edit page. Then we have our heavy metal guitar. And then this section here, of course, is not affected by any of that, even though we have it on a track. It's on the audio track 3, but because there's no effects on audio track 2, again, just hammering this point home for those who are brand new, anything on track 2 or track 1 won't be affected by what we have on audio track 3. Okay, just delete that plugin. I'll come back over here. Then we could do the VH4 directly on this clip. And then have a different amp. Just close that. A different amp on the other guitar clip. We'll have the Herbert on this one over here. Of course, set it up so it sounds however you want. Very cool. And finally, what do you do if you want a plugin or plugins to affect every single piece of audio that you have in your project? So we have audio on the audio track 1, audio track 2, audio track 3, etc., etc. And if I want to maybe give this project a certain feel, or I just want to master it or make sure it hits a certain level, then we can put our audio effects on our master bus. So we'll come over here to Fairlight just because things are easier to see over here. And maybe I want to use something like CLA Mixdown. I'll put that on the master bus. Maybe you don't want to use CLA Mixdown. Maybe instead you want to use something like Ozone. That's another great mastering plugin. Let's put that over here on the master as well. Let's bypass it for now. Or maybe I want to use something like BX Master Desk. That would work very well too, to master things. You could also use your built-in dynamics section here on your master bus. Same thing for your EQ to give everything, again, all of the audio in your session, a certain feel. Let's get rid of those for now. So we just have master desk. Maybe I want to put some sort of a metering suite on my bus, even though we actually have some nice meters already in here, built into DaVinci. But I'll grab Insight Pro and make sure that's down at the bottom of the stack. This is a nice metering suite. So if I play back, we're just being affected by Master Desk now. So this is affecting as you can tell, this is affecting everything. Every piece of audio is stereo just by clicking this button and then come down here and set it to mono. Every single piece of audio, no matter what track it is on. Maybe I don't want Master Desk. Maybe instead I want to use Ozone. I can of course use the Master Assistant for that, which is a pretty cool thing. We're not going to go into it here, but let's just use the EQ and we'll pull the top end way down, play this track that's on. It is stereo just by clicking this button and then come down here. That's on audio track 1. Then I play this audio that's on audio track 2. It affects that. And of course it affects again, it affects everything that is playing in your session, because again, we have it here on that master output. Okay, so if you want to give your project a certain feel, or you just want to master it, bring it up to level, or there's some certain special effect that needs to be across every single piece of audio in your project, then again, put those audio effects, the Fairlight effects, the VST effects, the AU effects, if you are on Mac, throw those right on your master output, and it will affect every piece of audio in your project. All right, so that should be everything you need to know about how to use your audio plugins, your VST plugins, or your AU plugins right here within DaVinci Resolve.